like to share a story about walking in my father's footsteps. 34 years ago, my father was, like many young men, was conscripted into the armed forces to fight in the Second World War. He wasn't a frontline soldier, he was in the RAF, and his specialism was working in radar. And he trained in radar and was stationed on two islands on the west coast of Scotland, the tiny island of Tiree and the even tinier island of Barra. When my mother died, about 10 years ago, all her papers went with her, but four postcards, that my father had sent my mother were left, and I found them, and they're lovely postcards, sepia tinted, with little drawings that he did on them about him waiting to go on leave to see her, or indeed just walking along or cycling along the lovely country lanes in the island of Barra. So, 2 years ago, my wife and I decided that we'd like to actually go and see if we could find those places that are on the postcards. And so we booked a ferry and took our camper van to the island of Barra to start with, and landed there at Castle Bay Harbour, which was where two of the postcards were taken. Quite different today than it was in 1939, 1940. It's a modern port now with a ferry. We duly arrived and found a local museum which we thought might help to decide find out where my father had spent his days when he wasn't busy doing radar things. And the museum didn't seem to know very much about the fact that the RAF had been stationed on the island of Barra, which was a bit odd because they got an enormous clock in one of the rooms which said a gift from the RAF in 1945 when they left the island. But what the young man that ran the museum was able to do was to tell us exactly where the locations were that we had on the postcards. So it was a sunny day and we set off in the camper van and we trolled around a bit, and we eventually found the footprint of the RAF station, which would have been where they were billeted and where the NAFI was, where everyone ate, and where the various pylons were and so on. In fact, it was the highest point on the island. And if you've never been to Barra, it's quite a fascinating place because it's one of the only few islands where aeroplanes land on the beach, and that's quite an event. People come out to watch that. It is quite an event actually watching an aeroplane land on the beach. But also there's a lovely beach as well where we discovered lots of 1950s, 1960s cars and lorries and buses were kind of jutting out of the sand, which was really rather odd. And the reason for that was when they built a causeway between the island of Barra and the island of Bernay, it altered the tidal system, and so the sand started to get washed away. So they put these vehicles down to stop the sand from being washed away. And subsequently it was fine until they built this jetty and then, this bridge, and then of course it's altered everything. But in walking around the island, we actually found the spot, or one of the spots, where my dad had actually walked, and he'd written on the card, just walking along. And that was a really lovely moment to stand and share a bit of time with my dad. He didn't tell me very much about the war. A lot of people didn't who were involved in it. He did tell me one thing, which was a positive thing, that a German pilot got lost. He got quite disorientated, flying quite a large aeroplane, and so he told him where to land safely. So he actually saved the lives of 4 German Air Force aircrew who were able to land on mainland Scotland. They were completely off beam. They come from Norway and should have been on the other side of Scotland, not on the west coast. This one's got a little picture of him on the end of the pier. You can see it's a fairly rickety wooden pier with his suitcase, and it says, and me waiting for the boat to go on leave. And it's just his lovely little drawings as well that I liked, the fact that he'd sat there and personalised them for my mother. There's another one here there's 2 little figures with fishing rods into Castle Bay Harbour with Les and me fishing. Supplement their RAF rations, I guess. He was away for some, 6 months at a time. He maybe got 2 leaves a year, and it was a long journey back because, sailing in those days wasn't a roll-on, roll-off ferry. It was basically a boat that and vehicles were winched onto the boats with a crane. But Barra is a beautiful, beautiful place, and it was just a lovely, magical moment to actually, from a postcard, a simple postcard that might have been thrown away or discarded, to actually walk in your parent or a close friend as footprint really, and share that moment with them.